especially Hanukkah. You know, Hanukkah is the miracle of the 8 days of the oil of the lamb. So we need to celebrate it with oil. We just pour the oil in our mouth. We squeeze the food just to enjoy the oil. Yeah, hopefully that's what can happen the next few years. Each of us will visit a different place to experience the holidays. You know, what will be the point of being here together without visiting each other all the time? Those calendars that we are putting together, calendars, have to be sent to everyone so we know what to do. Yeah. I know we're working. Actually, Chris knows exactly what needs to be done. I can't believe I mentioned this. So the command in the Bible, this is one of the 613 commandments. You must destroy Amalek. Now, you ask the question, who is Amalek in every generation? So, for example, we have Orthodox chief of rabbis in the land of Israel that for them, Yasser Arafat was Amalek. And they will come with a sermon and they will talk about the importance of destroying Yasser Arafat or Hamas. Depends what you do with those images. You can take it to an extreme and hurt people. Or you can just continue pretending that it's something that happened during biblical time and we just need to remember it. So what do you do with the enemy in your midst? Are you offering a hand for peace? Which, you know, maybe some of you know my opinions. I think the current Prime Minister of Israel doesn't really care about peace with the Palestinians. The Palestinians are not also so easy to have peace with. So it's a complicated, we are just repeating the same story of the Bible over and over again without ever learning how to get out of there. And that's why we are instructed to study our history. Jews are really sometimes to the point, and I'll make a comment here about Elie Wiesel. So Elie Wiesel was a sign for all the Jews, living Jews now, of never ever to forget the Holocaust. He is the author of the books, he is the witness, he is the oral witness to the Holocaust. He was there. He saw early in the mornings the marchers of the people that lived in his village, holding Jews and taking them to a place where they can shoot them and bury them, sometimes alive. He saw this. So he, in a way, is one of the last witnesses that can testify for those events. Actually, the Holocaust survivors, you can count them now on 2 hands. Soon, the only thing that we're going to have is the movies that were done, or the eyewitness recording of what happened. They're gone. They're really gone. So what are we left with? But there is another side to the Holocaust remembrance. And the side is that we can never trust anyone. So there is a lack of trust sometimes inside of each one of us Jews, that we always need to go to sleep with an eye open. You can't trust anything. So I was raised like all the rest of the Jews, especially Jews in America, because Jews in Israel also decided to fight for their own existence. No more going like lamb to slaughter. So the importance of the establishment of the state of Israel was that this was the only place where Jews can fight for their lives. We went through years and years of not having strength, not being able to do anything. What do you do if you live in Germany in 44, 45? What do you do if you're in Spain in 1492? So we have dates in our head. We always live with the calendar. We are crazy about calendars. Because those are the places that you can learn of what not to do. But it also leads to lack of attempts on our part to find the stranger, to hold the stranger, to embrace the stranger. So some of the historical events in Judaism made us fearful of ever attempting. And the example is the reaction of my people when we told them that, yeah, the Muslims are part of it. You see, no one worried about you. We don't worry about you anymore. Just because we killed him doesn't mean that there is any kind of a vicious bone in this room that will try to take revenge of the Jews down the hill. You guys are fine. We got used to you. It wasn't easy. We had 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 crusades. We had Inquisition. We had all kind of things that really can make us not talk to you. But what's the point? We live in America now, a land of opportunities, of meeting other people. But Muslims, that was a different story. Why? Because you have from let's not call him anymore. I'm afraid of him.
He wants to know what's happening, so he told me if it went out again to tell him to come down. But it's not to fix it, he just wants to know what's going wrong. Okay? So I am going to go get him, but not to tell him.
Oh my God. Why are we doing this? He will never allow me to teach again.
He said that Hal said it was happening to the Kiwanis, and he never got a chance to check.
Okay, okay, okay.
He's the stranger who's here.
That's a very good image. Very good image. He's the one that knows everything. It's fantastic.
He does.
Every church, every
He's your
synagogue needs
dentist.
to have one of those
He's
people.
your dentist.
Totally. But they're scary. God forbid you should touch the air condition. Oh my God. You know, we have air conditioning system in the temple. It's working very well. No, it doesn't work ever well because it's not as cold as you wanted it, or it's too cold. So people go there, and of course, they ruined it. And so the executive director always is terrified about those people. Those are the worst people in a church or a synagogue. The one that fixed the air conditioner all the time by themselves.
What about the Muslims?
Yeah, what about the Muslims? So the difficulty with the Muslims is the establishment of the state of Israel. So it's so interesting that establishment of the state made us finally. Oh, can you just stand there the rest of the time? Miracle worker. Miracle worker. So on one hand, the establishment of Israel made the Jews that moved to Israel feeling good about themselves, feeling power, after years and generations of feeling powerless, not being able to defend themselves. And at the same time that it provided the feeling of power, it also created a whole set of enemies as a result of actually the beginning of Zionism that did not pay attention to the people that were living there. So there's no doubt, if you investigate the history of the establishment of the state of Israel, that population, the Palestinian population, was completely ignored in the beginning. This is part of the challenge of having a movement, Zionism, clashing with the Palestinian movement of self-determination. So Muslims before the state of Israel was established were friendly. The Palestinians and the Jews living in Israel were in very friendly relationship. And then when the increase came of all the immigrants to the land of Israel, suddenly those Palestinians became aware that it is possible they're going to be replaced. So that's where the ground swelled for the fighting between Jews and Arabs and Palestinians in the land. That's the story. And there are some documents coming now of modern day young historian, Jewish historian, Israeli historians, that talk about the fact that there was actually a policy of trying to scare as many Palestinians as possible to move, to empty the land from Palestinians. So how do you do this? You do it by walking into an Arab village and telling the people that they have 10 minutes to leave. And where are they going to live? So some really bad things happen on both sides. There were no good people on both sides. There were just bad people on both sides. And this is why the conflict is still on. Also, you ask yourself, sometimes, we talk about, why there? Wait, you try to go to Uganda. Actually, Uganda was a place where the Zionist Congress suggested maybe we should go to Uganda, establish a Jewish state there. What? How can you go to a place that doesn't have a heart, doesn't have the Western Wall, doesn't have Jerusalem? I mean, we pray toward Jerusalem for the last 4,000 years of our lives. What's in Uganda? But forget about this. There was another solution in Russia, Birobidzhan. The Russians were willing to give us Birobidzhan to establish a Jewish state. Can you imagine us having this class in Birobidzhan? None of those solutions came through. And of course there was a solution next to New York. I cannot believe we missed that. Bagels that you can reach and buy that are baked in terrible poisonous water. That's why they taste so good, bagels in New York. It didn't come through. But this is the Elie Wiesel. On one hand, he can tell us again and again and again to remember the Holocaust, never to forget. And by the way, there are all kind of movements now that are using never to forget as their slogan, especially with immigration. Because we know what happened to some of the immigrants that wanted to come in early stages before the Holocaust was done, before the final solution. They were rejected. America never liked immigrants. It doesn't matter what, it's not only the color, it's also the religion. So there is definitely a tendency of isolation in America. We just want to be with our white friends. Why? It's so boring. It's wonderful to add some color to our lives. So what do you do? What do you do with the burden that Elie Wiesel puts on our shoulder? How do you learn how to welcome the stranger? This is the Jewish obsession. I just opened the window for you to know who your neighbors are. The young Jews that are growing up now are suffering from not knowing their history as well and not having any of those burdens. They are free. They don't worry about what my parents worried about or some of the people across the church or the temple there. So there's a new generation. So then you worry about, are they going to remember what we went through? Are they going to have a Jewish history that is grounded, that will put some roots and they will know who they are? Or maybe we'd like for them to be free of all the burdens of the past. This is the dilemma of the Jew. And this is the dilemma of the Jew in America, the dilemma of the Jew in South Africa, the dilemma of the Jew in Russia. We're all over the place. There is no place that doesn't have Jews. Even on the bottom of the Himalaya, you will find Israelis and Jews. And of course, you'll find Chabad, which is a more orthodox movement in Judaism, that will feed them kosher meals. In the bottom of the Himalaya, there's a restaurant by Chabad. I mean, that's a place where you need to eat kosher food before you start climbing and dying on the top of the mountain. We're all over the place. And so some look at this and say, hey, this was our mission. Our mission from the beginning is get out, get out, Abraham. Go and meet new people. I'm the God of everyone, not just your God. It was a huge discovery. And so we Jews serve, I love when you guys call us, or you guys are the what? Chosen. You know when you say the word chosen to a Jew, the reaction is, oh. Can you choose someone else for a while? Why can you be kind to us? Go choose someone else. It's okay with me. I think he's definitely choosing the tri-faith. That's definitely the next choice. There's a new religion that we're going to create. I'm not going to say it loud. Can you imagine? But there is something in the tri-faith initiative that can be there, a theology for everyone else. And of course, I mean, you have Hindus and, I'm aware of this. But it can be an interesting idea. So this place maybe is the place that all the people shall go. Maybe this could be Jerusalem. Actually, there's a bit hilly here. And the final prophecy is, that at the end of the day, all the people will climb up to the mountain, and that's where they will discover God. This could be the mountain. So this is why we Jews need therapy constantly. I'm serious. And also why there are so many therapists that are Jewish. Because they all had mothers. Wonderful mothers. Yes?
Why can't it be all faiths?
We entertained this in the early stages of the beginning of dreaming about a tri-faith. Why can't it be open to everyone? Well, there is something about Abraham that is very different than multiplicity of gods that some other religions have. Why? Who knows? Maybe it will change. I don't know.
Why can't it be a recognition as a primary matter, the struggle between good and evil? Are not all faiths wrestling with that?
Totally. So
Why
what do you want?
Why can't that be the root of bringing all humans together?
What if it's bigger than good and evil?
What if it's what?
Bigger than just good and evil.
Well, it is, but that's only because it was tied into the situation. We all have to live in a particular place and time.
I have an idea.
What?
Why can you be responsible for that?
Why can't I what?
Why can you do that?
I tried to do it. That's all I can say. I
Yeah.
tried to do it.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a little bit of a small bite, what we are doing. I agree with you that there are other people that maybe will be searching about it. I don't know how to do the other stuff yet.
I would make one suggestion that
Please.
that we recognize that the Anglo-Saxon has one particular way of thinking, and the other peoples of the world have another thinking, in particular in terms of the dialectic.
Yeah.
And it's that conflict between opposites that is ever present in those other, distinct from the sensory-oriented of the Anglo-Saxon.
The strangers.
What?
The strangers, yeah.
Exactly.
We, by the way, did an experiment one day. We had coffee in the Starbucks across from West Side. When you guys were there, remember that? Long time ago. Long time ago. And we asked high school kids to explain to us what the word dialectic means. They looked at us as we came from a whole different planet. But that's what sustains all of us. This ability to be able to engage people in dialectic thinking and dialectic conversation, where you mix people, because that's the best place of all. To be in a place where you are surrounded with strangers, that after you create this relationship, they become your friends. I don't know how to answer your question. Why? We'll see what happens with this. I mean, what do we know? There was only one article in Oprah. She can write about this when it comes. I want to go to the end now. Page 45. Who would like to read? Page 45. The conclusion, recapturing everything. Oh, by the way, pay attention to how he writes this. Every word is measured, calculated, precisely put in the right place. Anyone would like to volunteer to read, please? Anyone? Yes, please. Thank you.
Let us recapitulate. These are the differences between our Jewish traditional attitudes toward the stranger and that of some others. They were taught to oppress, repress, or eliminate altogether the stranger they confronted. As for us, we have tried to resist the stranger inside ourselves. When others were complacent with themselves and ruthless to strangers, we did the opposite. We have been and are compassionate with others except for Amalek.
Yeah. Look how true it is reading it now, at this time, in America. Continue.
We are compassionate even with the enemy, except with the enemy whose aim is to annihilate the Jew in us. That is the Jewish belief. If I must die, I shall. But I must, to the last minute, resist death and resist the enemy who symbolizes death. To wish to die is the ultimate insult to our existence. That is why suicide is a sin. We may not allow the enemy inside us, the stranger inside us, to choose death on our behalf.
Any reaction? Yes.
I really don't like that because I had the experience recently where I asked to die, or in the last year when I was in pain and they couldn't get it stopped. And then they finally had a psychiatrist come and talk to me because they thought I was losing it. And then he said, look at her MRI and they did surgery and then this pain stopped. But at that time, I really reflected on my life and it was great and I knew I couldn't stand to live in the pain anymore. And so I was really choosing death and I was okay with that.
I'm so happy you didn't.
I'm glad I didn't.
Oh my
end
God,
up that way.
yeah. You should celebrate that.
But I also celebrate the fact that I had that opportunity to to reflect on my life and was very grateful for it, and it was okay to die.
Wow.
You know, I could have missed a heck of a lot. But
Yeah, you will never have a chance to say that.
But I was there, and I meant it.
By the way, suicide, similar to Christianity, it's treated very differently now than it used to be. I mean, when you go to our cemetery on 42nd Street, once upon a time, those people were buried outside of the fence. In Judaism, they were buried outside of the fence of the cemetery because who they really killed? God. If every one of them was created in God's image, what you do is you kill God's image. But then thank God for medicine, and thank God for the pills, and thank God for understanding what goes on in the mind of a person who is committing suicide. We changed. They are buried with us, next to us. There's no separate land dedicated for people who commit suicide. Yes?
I would like to comment to your remarks. It's Connie, right?
Yes.
As a psychotherapist, I face that issue repeatedly. And I remind everyone when I'm talking to them, whenever they're coming to see me and referencing their issues of what choices they have, I remind them that the words suicide, homicide, and decide all end in side. And side in Greek and Latin means to slay or kill. We kill a self, we kill another, or we kill a path. And you almost killed a path that would have led to your death. So decide, the decision making is always so precious, and it is what preserves our notion of free will. And it's most difficult to persist and endure with it. Thank you.
Thank you.
What are your thoughts on assisted suicide for someone who's terminal and they're...
My thought, Judaism, yeah. So definitely there's more and more conversation in Judaism about helping, making sure that there's no pain, making sure there's no continuous suffering. I definitely participated, not as a physician, as a rabbi, having conversations with people about it. I would not stop someone of using the physician or the way to be able to leave this world. Of course, after conversations, after finding other options, this will be the last option.
Right.
Yeah, totally. Yes?
This is kind of different. Back to another one. The statement before the suicide, and suicide causes me lots of questions for you, but you only have so long. How do you discern who is Amalek or what is Amalek in your present life?
Ask it one more time.
How do you discern who is Amalek or what is Amalek
Yeah.
in your present?
I think if there is a force out there that is trying to, for example, the person who came to the Pittsburgh synagogue, that's an Amalek for me. The one that killed 11 Jews. But Amalek can be someone who is hurting you, God forbid. So Amalek can be any kind of a vicious force that is trying to destroy our existence. Who is Amalek? I'm not giving the honor to Trump to call him Amalek, but I'll definitely call him Pharaoh. He is in that level. He did not get yet to the level of Amalek. Thank God. I will look at Jewish history and I can identify the people who tried in every generation to destroy us.
So it's kind of like, okay. It's like people are the same the world around and we keep doing it again. So if you go back and learn history really well and identify past tense, you can superimpose it on present tense.
Well, at this moment, I think some of the people that were in Sarajevo that destroyed and killed so many Muslims, I can call a person who is not Jewish also Amalek. He's the paradigm of this evil that comes upon us from time to time, that is completely vicious. There's no really reason to kill this group of people or this individual, but it's happening. Hitler is definitely Amalek, but you have other people that have served in that role. Yes?
In a family situation, and what I'm really trying to get at is do unto others as you would have them do unto you, or the whole concept of welcome in your life. I'm having a how do you deal with an Amalek that is close within either your circle of friends or your family?
Well, first of all, I would not share the term. I only use that term when there's no other option. I'm not
Okay.
pointing
so
out.
Not an Amalek, it's not, okay.
Yeah, it's not a daily occurrence, I hope.
Mm-hmm.
But those people exist. But I will be very careful in sending judgment on someone and calling them by that name.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yes,
I have a question about Ellie
Elie Wiesel.
Wiesel. Who inspired him? I mean, he is so together, he's the guru, but who was his guru? He's the guru for us.
Yeah, God. He was a very religious person. Very religious. He was a Talmudic scholar. I mean, he wrote a lot of books, not only about the Holocaust, but also about the Holocaust. Who inspired him? He came from France, and there are some French philosophers that he read and some German philosophers that influenced him. But I think his role in this world was to be a witness, and he served his role utmost. I don't know of any other person that wrote so much and spoke so much about this topic.
Could we call him a prophet, Ellie? No?
Yeah, of course, because it wasn't just about the past. He wasn't only witness of the past, he was also teaching us how to watch the future.
Thank you.
But he left us with a burden. I mean, it is the burden that we have every day of not being able to remember anything else except the Holocaust. So here is the dilemma for the Jew, for the modern day Jew. We don't know well the Bible. What we know from history is Masada, because everyone knows Masada and what happened there. Those people that are planning a trip to Israel, hopefully you'll get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and climb Masada, only to hear the story that until today they didn't find any of the bones of any of those people that committed suicide. So there are some legends. Be careful of your tour guide. Don't ever trust your tour guide. Especially when he takes you to shops. Because he's making money there.
I think it's Eric.
What?
I do too, Chris.
I said, I think it's Eric.
Eric is the tour guide? Usually is. He talks
I'm sure the bus will have also someone in addition to Eric.
I'm
There's another tour guide.
Yeah. But the burden is that so for the history for the modern day Jew is a little bit of the Bible and Abraham, Masada, and then the 1948 War of Independence. It's interesting how we call it, the War of Independence. The Palestinians in Israel call this the Nakba, the disaster. An Arabic word for that. So the Holocaust is huge for us, huge. We constantly repeat, we raise money by, you know how politicians ask for money? The Jews ask for money because they tell us that we need to remember the Holocaust. It's like, I'm so jealous of how much money was raised in America to build museums for the Holocaust, instead of giving the money to education that is more than just the Holocaust. So we have those kind of dilemmas in our lives. So on one hand, Elie Wiesel is the witness. We admire him, we love him. I wonder what his death will do now to all of us. There'll be no one like Elie Wiesel to remind us constantly that we need to always watch the future. Who is going to do it for us? America? America has been a paradise for the Jew. We never had such a good life as the life that we Jews had in America. For now. For now. And now I need to knock on a piece of wood to make sure it will continue. Don't you love this? We were such intellectuals, but we still go to the primitive way of knocking on wood. Something is still primitive inside of every one of us.
I'm a Christian, you know, I come out of a Christian background, but the Holocaust to me, even, it stands out in my mind even bigger than 9/11. For my memory bank, you know, the Holocaust has always been, you know, and it's something that when I go into libraries, you know,
Those are the books you're searching for.
they're those
Wow.
books I'm searching for.
Yeah, fascinating.
Because it shows what people can do to people.
Yeah, 9/11, that's another place. You asked me about Amalek. 9/11, those people that came and did what they did, that can be, again, a modern day Amalek. But the question is, what do you do with this? Is it going to torment you forever? Is it going to be something that will keep you low, never trying to go into different relationships? I mean,
One time I saw a movie where a German boat was going down. It was a movie of World War II, and a German boat was going down. But my thought was, those are somebody's boys. They were German boys, and we had sunk it. But they were somebody's boys.
yeah, people like us. Yeah, this is why there's the. No, you guys can hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I can start singing Israeli songs. Don't worry.
It seems to me that another complicated thing is that there's this evil within people that is not the only thing within them. We're looking at that so much, it seems lately in our American history, of realizing that, wait a minute, our founding fathers, almost all were involved or profited from slavery, for example. So obviously your perspective has a great deal to do with how you would view those people, or has
Absolutely.
had a great deal in history. And how do we view somebody that we know was absolutely involved in evil, but that wasn't the totality of them?
Of the person.
Yeah.
Those are good questions. We're talking about Amalek needs to be brought in when there's a totality of evil, to a degree that it cannot be comprehended. And we have those in history. Okay, let's continue.
And now, in conclusion, let us us return to Abraham.
Yeah, we have to go back to Abraham. We started there, and we journey, and now we need to talk about Abraham. Go on.
Who, on that dramatic and suspenseful night, learned for the first time what the future held for his children. He saw the fire and the smoke, the exile. He saw the darkness, and he felt the anguish. On that night, he shared the experiences of our generation. On that night, he signed, on our behalf, the covenant, a symbol of endurance, significance, and survival.
That's the night when he had this amazing ritual of cutting pieces of different animals and putting them together and offering them to a God he never met before. That's the night of the covenant. Willing to accept something from a God that he didn't know anything about. Continue.
Our generation can best understand the terms of the covenant. We have been strangers to more peoples than there are on earth. We have seen the smoking furnace. We have seen the burning torch. And night had no end. And Abraham's sacrificial offerings were not saved. Of all the divine promises, only one was fulfilled. We have not become strangers to our past. Now we are waiting, again, for the rest of the covenant to be implemented. We are waiting.
That. Not a lot of things happened at night. But there was some kind of a mysterious understanding that we are in a covenantal relationship with God. So how do I know about the covenant? Because we have the commandments. The commandments are tools to help us fulfill the covenant with God. Commandments looked by other religions as a burden, as something that, oh my God, the responsibility that you guys have. Look at God, God of the Bible, who is God that only demands things from you. Well, those demands are part of our responsibility. How else I can convey my relationship to God if not through the commandments that are part of my covenantal relationship? So not everything goes. There are things that I need to obey. I need to respond to my God. And I do it through more than the 10 Commandments, because the 10 Commandments is just a little flavor. I mentioned to you, we have 613 of them, that most of us don't remember all of them. One of them is never to forget Amalek. But that's not the most important. The most important is the first commandment in the 10 Commandments. I'm your God, the God that took you out of Egypt, to be your God. That's the commandment. Continue.
We asked earlier, why did he agree to its terms?
Why Abraham agreed for those terms? He got nothing. He got one son, but he was promised so many children. By the way, Abraham in this description is the father of all of us. Not only the father of the Jews. Abraham needs to be viewed as the father of all. Continue.
Why didn't he plead with God to save his descendants without exile, to spare them from slavery?
Wouldn't it be nice? Hey, I don't like the vision you have for me. Too much exile, too much darkness. Come on. There was 430 years in Egypt. But the exile that he talks about, the exile that we Jews always felt. We never felt comfortable in any place except in America for the first time. And even this is now coming to a question. I mean, we pray every night and every moment of our life for Judge Ginsburg to be alive.
Yeah.
All of us.
We all do.
We all do. I know. We all do. God forbid I hear she fell sometime or something. Oh my God. How did we get to this condition of worry about the life of one judge? I worry about all of them. All the good ones. Sorry. No, I'm not sorry. I know who they are. Continue.
What better time could there have been to ask and obtain compassion for his children? Why didn't he say,
This is now Hebrew phrase, Ribono shel olam, master of the universe. So it's similar to what Fiddler on the Roof does all the time, speaking to God in Hebrew. Ribono shel olam, master of the universe, go on.
the covenant must be agreed upon by both of us, and I shall not agree unless you accept my conditions?
Yeah, what's wrong with this? Why didn't Abraham put any conditions to the covenant? Go on.
But then, God too causes us to wonder. Was that the proper moment to tell his partner that his children would be cast into exile? That they would become strangers? Wasn't he worried that Abraham might become frightened and discouraged to the point of refusing the terms of the covenant?
I'm not doing it. I'm not going for that. Sweeten the pie for me. Make it easier for me.
Let's negotiate.
Yeah, let's negotiate. Go on. Abraham negotiated with God about Sodom and Gomorrah. Few chapters before this event, remember the conversation? Maybe there are 50 righteous people, or maybe 45, maybe 40. He was bargaining with God. And then, of course, he stopped it because there were not even 10. This is why Jews, when it comes to creating a circle of prayer, need 10, once upon a time, men. Now we finally accepted women. I'm not talking about liberal Judaism. Orthodox call the women from the kitchen. Come, we don't have enough. But 10 is the number of the required prayer circle the Jews need. You can't pray if you don't have 10 people. That's from the bargaining with Abraham. He stopped at 10. Go on.
Yes, Abraham was frightened. The text says so. But it didn't last long. Yes, he felt anguish when God first revealed that his descendants would become strangers. But then he heard the last part of the sentence. They will be strangers in foreign lands, among strangers, not at home, not to themselves.
This is something that we need to take into account. It says they're strangers in strange land. There was no promise of the promised land in that moment. No one thought about the promised land, which of course opened in the door to offer other possibilities to establishing a state of Israel. Aren't you asking sometimes, what is in the mind of God to put a state that is a Jewish state, not only a Jewish state, it's open to other minorities, where? In the Middle East, in a place where, how this works? The only place in the Middle East where there's no oil is the promised land. How stupid that is. You can't even, it's a land of milk and honey. Yeah, sure. That's how we call Israel, the land of milk and honey. It's in the Bible. But what do you have to believe the Bible? There's no oil. And there are 500 million people that are not Jewish surrounding this only Jewish state. You'll be strangers in many strange lands, and that's exactly is the story of Judaism. That's how we are. And I think it was, in a way, a burden, but a gift too. A gift to be able to live constantly among strangers, to learn about the stranger, to be able to be open to the stranger. That's the gift. So even in the midst of a curse that you'll always be in exile, At least I am in exile from maybe a promised land, but not exile from God. There is a covenantal relationship that I'm always connected to God. That's the gift. Continue.
And so, Abraham felt reassured. He understood that the covenant contained a blueprint for life in society. To live without strangers could result in an impoverished system. To live only among ourselves, constantly inbreeding, never facing an outsider to make us question again and again our certainties and rules, would inevitably lead to atrophy.
By the way, this is the story of the tri-faith. He's talking about us. He's talking about what we created and are creating. How boring just to be among ourselves all the time. No. Venture, go out. That's how we learn from all this experience. We complain about this. We died because of it. But in the long run, it was an amazing gift to be able to be among strangers. Hopefully, none of them acted as Amalek, but strangers that accept us, that are willing to give us a hand, to help us, to create the world that we need to create. Not the world as it is, but the world as it should be. That's what we have done constantly. Trying to discover the ideal world that all of us can live under the fig and under the vine tree. Continue.
The experience of encountering a stranger, like that of suffering, is important and creative, provided we know how to distinguish between them and when to stop.
Yeah, so I'm very happy you stopped and you did not fulfill your suicide. I mean, that moment of deciding to go on is a crucial moment that you need to celebrate every day of your life. Go on.
In his promise, God told Abraham that his children would always know how far they could go too far.
How far they can go too far. Knowing where to stop. Knowing to distinguish what's going on. Go on.
They would be strangers only among strangers, to strangers, but not to him. They would return to him as his children. And this too is a part of the covenant.
Yeah, so that's... How many people have this feeling with their God they believe in? That you are not stranger from the God you believe in. How does that feeling makes your life more pleasant to live? Or more challenging? So you can be a stranger among strangers, but never with God. That's the work that each of us has to do. How are we doing with that work? Are we okay? How many people in this room feel stranger with God? All of us sometimes. All of us sometimes. I hope we have dilemmas and difficulties with God. How else we're gonna grow? Change. I'm worried about those Sunday morning preachers on TV. Everything is so clear to them, especially in the collection plate at the end. Really, a clergy needs a plane for what?
3 of them.
Yes.
They need 3 of them. One
Yeah.
guy needs 3.
Yeah. It's amazing sometimes. They know it all. They have the answers for everything. I speak to God on a regular basis. Yeah, sure. How many times God listens to you? God is so tired from us. So tired. But he takes us until the last moment if we just want to repent. And that's why in Judaism we are told, try to repent one day before you die. Oh, Rabbi, I don't know when I'm dying. Aha! That's why you have to repent every day. Continue.
Exile will come to an end. Everything does. Exile will have a meaning. Everything has. For God is in exile. In exile too, God is everywhere, and God is not a stranger to his creation, and surely not to his people.
By the way, the God is everywhere was a Jewish theology that started after the destruction of the temple in year 70. Why? Because they sent us to exile. They ended up marching in Rome with the different furnitures of the temple that was destroyed. So Judaism too is not a monolithic theology that never changes. Christianity is not a religion that has one theology and that's it. And the theology of Jesus is exactly what this church believes in. By the way, you ever thought what will happen if Jesus actually comes second time to this church? Well, you definitely have to clean the tables again, as you did before. No, but would he recognize Christianity? If Moses came back to Temple Israel, he's never going to come to Temple Israel because he's Orthodox. No. He's not going to go to Reform. He'll never know what Reform Judaism is. What do you mean Reform? What was wrong with my religion? Boy, they sabotaged it anyway before you knew it. Before you were buried already, they forgot about you.
ICE agents will get them anyway.
The what?
ICE agents will get them before they are dead.
Anyway, so that's so unique about Judaism, that is constantly changing. Because God is changing. The God of Abraham is not the God of Isaiah, and is not the God of Elie Wiesel. Please, please, take a book from the library. The name of the book is God, a Biography. Incredible book by John Miles. He also did the same with the Gospels. He talked about the Gospels and how the God of the Gospels is not the guy. The first Gospel is not like everything else that was written after. Continue.
El is in Israel. God is in Jewish history. Therefore, in history. And man must not treat him as a stranger or be a stranger to him. Of course, we are all strangers on this earth, which is older than we are, and yet it is up to us to be true to ourselves, meaning to live our whole life and share it, to assume our truth and our fervor and share it. And then one day, we could all gather around one who has not come as yet, but who will come. On that day, when he does come, finally, he will not be a stranger, and none of us will ever be strangers again, for he will be the Messiah.
Yeah, Jews believe in Messiah, guys. But we have some warnings about the Messiah, which is, if you are planting a tree in the garden, the beautiful gardens that we have here, the orchard, if you plant something, you're in the middle of planting, and someone comes and taps you on the shoulder and says, stop doing it, the Messiah is coming. Go meet him in the gate. The teaching in Judaism is, keep planting the tree and then go and welcome the Messiah. So in the midst of what we need to do in this world, and I'm sorry that we didn't have everyone in the beginning of this experiment, Doctor. Yeah, maybe it will happen. Maybe one day, maybe when this is 20 years from now, why wouldn't the Messiah come here to enjoy the fruit of your work? I don't know what to do with the rest of the world. But for now, that's a nice beginning. Yes?
Well, some years ago, I got really bored with Christianity. And I started studying.
What is that feeling? Tell me what happens to a person who feels bored with Christianity?
Maybe I was more hopeless because it was too hard to give up everything and come follow me. You know, the things that Jesus says in the Bible, in the New Testament. Who the heck is doing that? Love your enemy. I thought, oh. So, I started dabbling in Eastern spirituality. And I found there a whole wealth of understanding about the presence of God, the presence of myself. And now, I haven't exhausted Eastern spirituality, but now here I am delving into Abraham because I'm always telling my friends, we don't understand Abraham enough, and so I'm starting to right now through Ellie, and I'm realizing the wealth that there is yet to know about Abraham, and there's so much ignorance out there about Abraham in my world, and myself too.
Well, part of it is the ability to study the Jewish Bible. I mean, Jews don't have a foggiest idea about the New Testament. None of them read anything. It's almost, oh my God, what is this doing in your library? You know, I think we need to be immersed in each other's writings. There's wisdom in all those writings. You cannot understand the parables of Jesus in the New Testament, or whoever wrote it, if you don't understand the area and the place where he emerges. Those parables were part of the language of the rabbis before the destruction of the temple and after the destruction of the temple. That was the world. You did an excellent job in reading. Beautiful. Yes?
Why in the time of Jesus did Jews not think Jesus was the Messiah? What was it about him that they didn't think he could be the Messiah?
I think you're making an assumption that all the Jews knew about Jesus. It was a pretty isolated kind of an event that was carefully guarded by the rabbis in making sure that rebels don't function. Yeah, I mean, there was, my religion is good. Why do I have to introduce you to Jesus? What I'm saying, it's, religion in those days was controlled by the Pharisees. And the Pharisees didn't want competition. And besides, maybe he had long hair and he played the guitar. I mean, why would you go there? Don't go there. He was not allowed. That's why he needs to turn the tables of the money making. I mean, guys, the material there needs to be carefully examined. What things were written there purposefully in the Gospels in order to create a separation from Judaism. So both on the part of Jews, Pharisees, and also on the part of people that were responsible for the creation of the Gospels, Jesus did not write the Gospels, guys. Yeah. So there was an attempt to create two different disciplines, and they succeeded until us coming here. Look how many thousands of years that schism worked. For what? To benefit what? No one. just to create chaos and destruction and Amalek. I mean, why can't we write a new Gospels? And maybe the first chapter of that Gospel will be the story of the Tri-Faith Initiative. Why did we waste so much time fighting each other? Not recognizing the stranger and the other, not welcoming. What happened to us? How can religion, any religion, lead to that chaos, to that schism? No wonder you liked Eastern religions. They were not involved with the world. They were isolated. They loved each other. By the way, you can be a Buddhist and a Jew. Your name is Jubu. we have a lot of Jews who are Jubus. They do yoga too. They came to that from yoga. There are some wonderful writings in those disciplines. But they had life that was different than Jews and Christians and Muslims, completely. When you're not involved in those kind of conflicts and destruction, you have the luxury of creating a beautiful insights, of contemplating your navel. We did not have time to contemplate our navels. That's a mistake we did. We just went on each other's throat from the beginning. What a waste. What a waste. Yes?
I thought, and maybe you can clarify this, that at the time Jesus reportedly was in the area, he was one of a plethora of people claiming to be Messiah.
Yeah, of course.
How do you know?
How do you know who is the authentic one? Yeah. Well, you guys have to discover it for yourself. I'm not going to. No, but there were a lot of cultic people, there was a vacuum that created that need for Jesus. There was a vacuum at that time. And so, how do you know? Yeah, you're right. I mean, I see all of them at the corner of streets with notes. I need food. Maybe they're there. Maybe those are the people that we miss and don't pay attention. Why aren't we stopping there? Maybe one of them is the Messiah. Yes?
In the Jewish tradition, what did they say the Messiah would do? What was the need for the Messiah to do?
Definitely not to create a chaos, but to bring, actually the Messiah will create a world that every day will feel like it's Shabbat, Sabbath. It'll be perfect. World in harmony. Definitely not the Gog and Magog wars at the end of complete chaos. We don't have those visions. Actually, it is possible. Jews believe also that it is possible he will never come. So what? What's wrong if he never comes? What if we see in the other person sitting next to us a potential of a Messiah?
Was it forecast that the Messiah would be a sacrifice?
No. There are some writings, but again, the question is, so we have a whole book of material that never got into the Old Testament or the New Testament. So you have Gospels that didn't make it, not the winning Gospels. We have material like that. It's all stored and kept in the Apocrypha. That's in addition to material that we never found. Who knows? I mean, when you go to Israel for the trip, you can go, be careful, don't go to those antique shops, because they will sell you material and scrolls that are authentic bullshit. Be careful of those stores. Oh, here's a tourist bus. I can make a living today. Yeah. So we have so many documents, so much material. Part of the difficulty is to identify who is the author and what period of time. They're doing a better job now in putting age to some of the manuscripts because of some of the discovery in being able to do it. So there are so many versions out there. Who is the Messiah? Maybe this is a good conclusion. We have one more class next week, but maybe the Messiah is the person sitting next to you. Why can't you be happy with that conclusion? Wow. So what else I'm going to do with the person next to me? Why can't we dream together? Why can't we make the world better? Why can't I go down to the south and try to help those mothers meet their kids again? I mean, it's so easy to be a Messiah in our days. So easy. The question is if you want to do it. But that's our role. Our role is to become messiahs for other people with a small m. You don't need a big M. You can be the anointed one. Because that's what the meaning of Messiah means. The anointed one. Mashiach, the word in Hebrew is Mashiach, the one that is anointed. Every one of us. Go to a store, get some oil. Put in your hand. Feel like a Messiah. You can do it. Maybe it's inside of us. It is inside of us. Maybe it's time to, I'm saying this so it will be terrible. Maybe it's time to stop waiting for someone else to come and clean all this shit. It's up to us. I'm happy you discovered Abraham through Elie Wiesel. I thought this is an incredible article to talk about the difficult conditions that we're living now. How far away are we from the understanding of what we need to do with strangers? And to admit to ourselves that we are the stranger. And what do we do about this? Thank you.
So next week?
Next week. After suggesting that Pharaoh is not a role model for an enemy for the Jewish people, because what do we know about Pharaoh? It's a difficult chapter to read about Pharaoh, because God is the one that hardens Pharaoh's heart. And only because of God's action, Pharaoh is so cruel. So, you know what? God, how dare. Amalek is the constant stranger that in Judaism one needs to face and destroy. Amalek is not a stranger one should not fear. Amalek is the one that in the story from the exit from Egypt, come on in. Amalek is the one, this vicious tribe that met the Israelites on the way out of Egypt. And what they did is they attacked the elderly, the children, and the women that usually are walking in the back of the camp, tired, not having enough strength, which, by the way, created a pretty amazing commentary on the Israelites that didn't protect the women, the children, and the elderly. How come you didn't think about? You see, you can't just exit Egypt without some kind of critique. How come you guys did not think, you, the Israelites, didn't think to protect those people. Why didn't you put some of the strong tribes with the spears to defend those people? So so even the Exodus from Egypt doesn't, no one lives it by itself. We love to critique everything that we do. I mean, that's why we are so obsessed with everything. We always tend to look at what we do. Even after you survive a journey, you survive a miracle, what went wrong? I think it's a great quality. It's a great quality. We are still asking today why the second temple was destroyed in the year 70 CE. Well, I mean, we know why. The Romans did it. No. Judaism is not satisfied just by blaming the Romans. The reason why we lost the second temple is because of too much hate among Israelites in Jerusalem. So even if it's not the right reason for the destruction, why can't we just be more critical of ourselves? This is, I don't know, this is something very strange about us. There's a literature after the Holocaust. We know who was in charge of the Holocaust and who did it. That's never satisfying. You can't just stay in those reasoning. Something that we need to probe needs to help us next time when we have an incident like this. We are so much into history. I think Jews are very much aware of their history, sometimes to the detriment of not remembering or not knowing the history of other people. We like to, you have those wounds and you like to scratch them again. Oh my God, look, it's bleeding now. Well, it's bleeding because you non-stop working there. Oh, wow. Oh, she has it.
Battery's fixed.
She has it. So Amalek becomes a paradigm to any kind of relationship with a stranger that goes the wrong way. That is not really a relationship that one enjoys or requires.
Sorry, couldn't find the batteries.
What do you mean, sorry? Thank you.
Good?
Is it better now?
Well, you gotta actually turn it on.
The rabbi and the microphone. Wow.
Now is it too loud?
No, I don't know. It's okay. It's okay. Okay. We know, in the middle of the page, we know little or nothing about Amalek, though we know much about other ancient peoples with whom our forefathers were dealing. We know nothing about Amalek. All we know is that we are told to remember to forget, never to forget him. Nothing more, nothing else. Meaning, we must forget him, but remember what he tried to do to us. Yes?
Is Amalek a symbolism, or is it meant to refer to a specific individual?
In the biblical text, it's not an individual, it's a tribe, a vicious tribe that functions in the desert.
Okay.
So they were waiting for the Israelites to leave Egypt.
Okay.
And a symbol.
Okay.
You can have both things. Just because it existed doesn't mean it doesn't exist anymore. I think that's how we find the strength in the history of our people. So you take those examples and you make out of those examples a warning sign for future generations. There's always Amalek. There's always Pharaoh. Those people don't exist only on the biblical level. They are living among us. Do you want to suggest to me some modern day pharaohs? I'm sure it will be very hard to figure out. separating children from mothers. That's exactly what Pharaoh did. He threw the firstborn boy to the Niles. There is no more cruel separation in there. Okay, you guys can give me other examples. We have pharaohs in our own families. We have Amaleks in our own families. People that don't get us or do things that are disturbing us, yes.
But just, isn't the concept evil?
It's evil. It's evil. It's the worst kind of evil.
Okay.
Because one would not expect people to do those kind of activities.
So we all possess good and evil.
Yes, Mazel Tov. Don't you feel better now?
I have to accept it.
The capability.
We have the capacity, the capability, yeah, definitely. It doesn't take too long. Yeah. But there's a power in us to be able to resist those kind of things. Not meaning we must forget him, but remember what he tried to do to us. He attacked women and children, helpless, defenseless people. He attacked when we were weak. He attacked our weakness. As soon as Israel doubted God's presence in its midst, as soon as Israel felt apprehensive toward its destiny, Vayavo Amalek. So Yavo, Amalek came. So those are two Hebrew words. So once the Israelites start arguing or denying God's existence, they just left. Can you imagine? How can one start arguing about God after all the miracles that they witnessed? Hello? I mean, what else you guys want? You wanted manna? You got manna. You wanted the opening of the sea? You got it. Everything. You left Egypt, for God's sake. Why are you fetching? Why are you complaining? Well, that's in the nature of the Jews. We're never happy with what we have. We always want to be better and do better. And now it doesn't work? Okay, it's okay. I'll be yelling. It's
Your
fine.
magnetic personality keeps.
Oh yeah, sure.
I
It's
don't know.
okay.
Let me see if I can get a handheld. Does that help? If I give you one?
No, I don't like those. I'll speak loud. Yeah.
Yeah, but you won't catch on.
You never know what I can do if I hold it. I can start singing something. There's something about holding that provides different kind of energy. I'm okay.
Keep going. I'll just play.
Such a loyal clergy. Okay.
No. It's broken.
Well, it's time.
Talk loud.
It's time to replace it. I mean, come on. Compared to the moving to a new building with expenses,
See if I can find a comparable.
this is so easy. There is, by the way, a battery store on Center and 132nd, if you can get there. It's on the right side.
Getting there is tricky.
It's the worst street. I think they did it in order to welcome us.
Yes, as we moved in, the signs went up.
I know. Yavo is Amalek came. Vayavo Amalek. Amalek came when they doubted God's strength in their midst. When they had questions about who is God and what is God doing for us lately, that's when Amalek came. It's an interesting notion to try to keep a close relationship to the God we believe in, because you never know what can happen when we loosen that tie, when we have doubts, when we don't trust anymore in God's role in our lives. So that's when Amalek came. That's when he launched his assault. Amalek, the epitome of the stranger. Amalek, the other side of experience, of life, of hope, of ecstasy. He is the other. He exists not simply to teach us, to force us to be strong, to learn the art of survival. No. He exists to kill us, to turn us into victims of our own weakness. Amalek, the stranger in us, who is against us, he must be opposed, merciless, and struck down. And in every generation, we can have those kind of creatures that are trying to destroy us. We all have Amalek. Amalek is not just a Jewish invention because we want to be miserable. Every one of us have those forces. Sometimes they are global forces, sometimes they are the neighbor next door, sometimes it's the person that we share the bed with. You have those issues. So it's there for everyone. Judaism decided to call it Amalek because of the experience we had. Christianity. Who is the villain in Christianity?
Judas?
Judas, yeah. Yeah, why am I asking? Of course I know that. But this is where the difficulty is. This is why we waited so long to have the tri-faith initiative. We waited 2,000 years. Ridiculous. But that's how the animosity toward Jews, even Jews that were not there. I was not there. I'm not responsible for the killing. Well, it doesn't matter.
See, now you're in big trouble. I brought the big guys in.
It's scary though. Scary moment. It's a scary moment. I didn't do anything.
It could be that it's going to,
The what?
the Kiwanis group has said that it has dropped out in the middle.
It's the fault of the Kiwanis. Amalek. The Kiwanis are the Amalek.
Rabbi?
Yes.
So we
Thank
must,
you. It's working.
So we must be opposed mercilessly. Talk to us about how you oppose that.
When you destroy the memory of Amalek, I mentioned to you last time that around the holiday of Purim, the celebration of the book of Esther, that's the only time that we Jews are allowed to put masks on. It's New Orleans inside the synagogue. The rest of the year, we need to be without masks and costumes. Once a year, we Jews are allowed to pretend to be someone else. And we put wonderful, I was such a beautiful woman a few years ago. I mean, you have to be crazy completely. I mean, I had a wig, I had makeup, I shaved the beard in order to rain. Yeah, it was amazing. The only thing I didn't do is very high heels. I can't walk on heels. But people are dressed like Queen Esther, people are dressed like Mordecai, people are dressed like Obama. We had people that put a mask of Obama, and also we had other masks. I mean, it was just a joyous night of reading the story of Esther, and every time you get to the name Haman, we made a lot of noise with the Gregors. Yeah, next Purim. What, you don't have anything in your calendar next Purim. Come to the synagogue on Purim. Come see how we celebrate this crazy holiday. We actually are. And we eat Hamantashen. Hamantashen, we have food for every holiday. Hamantashen is in the shape of the ear of Haman. And it's filled with man or filled with apricot. I love them filled with chocolate. Those are the best. So it's a triangle full of chocolate that you eat. And every time you eat, you actually cause Haman some pain because weeding his ear. Every Jewish holiday has its own food, which of course that's the reason why most Jews die from over cholesterol. Because all of them are full of oil.